Hello again. In this screencast, I'm going to be discussing the process known as meiosis. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain what meiosis is, explain why reproductive cells have half the number of chromosomes as other cells, and explain how meiosis occurs. So to begin, let's talk a little bit about what meiosis is. Now, by definition, meiosis is the process by which the number of chromosomes in a cell is reduced by half to form sex cells, which sex cells are also called reproductive cells or gametes. So meiosis is actually a process of cell division. So you may be asking the question, why do reproductive cells only have half the number of chromosomes as other cells? And that is an excellent question. So I want to answer that question, but it's going to take a few other questions. So the first question, what is the job of gametes, which hopefully you will remember that gametes are reproductive cells, so the egg and sperm cell. Reproduction. They need to join together to form an offspring. Next question, how many parents did it take to make you? Now, when I talk about parents, I'm not talking about step-parents. I'm only talking about biological parents, the two people that it took to make you. Well, I kind of just gave that answer away. It's two, so if you have more than that many biological parents, then you're probably not human, and you probably shouldn't be watching this video anyway. So your genetic material comes from two sources, your mom and your dad. Now, they might not look like these two guys, but still from your mom and your dad. So your mother contributes half of your genetic material. The other half comes from, you guessed it, your father. So if we add half from mom and half from dad, we get the whole number of genetic material that it takes to make an offspring. Now, hopefully you are a little happier than this guy. So now, we still haven't answered the question, why only half? Well, you remember from our definition that meiosis forms sex cells, also called gametes. The offspring of two parents should have the same number of chromosomes as both of those parents do individually. Now, you may think that having more chromosomes might be a good thing. You might have some kind of super baby, but that is actually not the case. More chromosomes can actually mean that there are problems. In fact, the genetic disorder known as Down syndrome is caused by having one extra chromosome. Having too few chromosomes would also cause problems because some of the genetic material, which has directions on them for the organism, are missing. So, the answer, if each parent's gamete or reproductive cell contains half the number of normal chromosomes, then when those two gametes combine during reproduction, then the cell that forms from that combination will have the same number of chromosomes as both of the parent cells did individually. So in summary, more chromosomes is bad. Less chromosomes, also bad. Just the right amount, the same number as both parents. That's really, really, really good. Thumbs up. Good job, dude. Alright, so let's take a look at numbers. Alright, just to review, and to make sure that you understand the concept that reproductive cells have half the number of chromosomes as body cells. So humans have 46 chromosomes, or, well, 23 pairs, in their somatic, that's another fancy word for saying body cells. So how many chromosomes do humans' gametes have? Well, half the number of 46, which is 23. Next question. So dolphins have 44 chromosomes in their body cells. How many chromosomes do their gametes have? Half of 44 is 22. Kangaroos have 16 chromosomes in their body cells. How many chromosomes do their gametes have? You guessed it. 8, half the number of 16. So hop away, you little small chromosome having animal. So, just to reinforce this concept, why is it so important that gametes have half the number of chromosomes as the parent cells? Well, it comes down to those two reproductive cells, the egg and the sperm. So we have a sperm cell, the male gamete, and we have an egg cell, the female gamete. So their job is to combine to form a zygote. That's the very first cell that forms into an offspring. So remember, human cells have 46 chromosomes. So you see our sperm cell has 23 chromosomes, and the egg cell has 23 chromosomes. When they combine, that makes a cell that has 46, the normal number. It's exactly what we want. So how does this happen? This is the really exciting stuff. Well, maybe not that exciting. Hooray, let's party! So before meiosis, before this process of cell division even begins, there is a normal number of chromosomes in this cell's nucleus. In the example that I'm going to use, there are 2 pairs of chromosomes, or a total of 4 chromosomes. During interphase, the chromosomes double, making 4 pairs of chromosomes from 2. So that makes the cell also expand in size. So now we have 8 chromosomes. So the process of meiosis basically goes through 2 different phases of division. What we would call a mitosis 1 and mitosis 2. I'm not going to go through each individual thing that happens. I'm only going to focus on the chromosomes. So in the first division, the chromosomes separate and move to opposite ends of the cell. The cell will then start to stretch out as the chromosomes are moving to opposite ends. Eventually, the cell will split into 2 cells, each with 2 pairs or 4 chromosomes each. So at this point, we are at the same number of chromosomes in each of these 2 cells as the original cell before it began to split. So then we move on to the second division of the chromosomes. So each daughter cell, just like they did before, begins to stretch as the chromosomes move to the center of the cell. The chromosome pairs in each of those 2 cells separate and move to opposite ends of the cell. So now we have 2 chromosomes at each end of the cell. By the end of meiosis, those 2 cells divide into 4 sex cells, 4 gametes, each with 2 chromosomes each, half of the number that was in the original cell. So is this the end of meiosis? Yes, it is. Unlike the cell cycle that I discussed in another video, meiosis does not start over. In fact, in order to produce more gametes with half the number of chromosomes, remember that, a new cell must be divided. Not that kind of cell, that's a cell phone. That kind of cell. So let's summarize this, all right? 3 really important things about meiosis. Number 1, meiosis produces reproductive cells, also called gametes. Always remember that vocab, folks. The cells that are produced during meiosis, the gametes, have half the number of chromosomes. And the offspring that are formed from those gametes must have the same number of chromosomes as the parent. That's why it's so important that the gametes have half the number of chromosomes. So I'd like to say thank you for watching. Check back later for more of my fantastic science videos.